The gods had a problem, a big one. Their once unstoppable powers were fading fast. They were no longer immortal, and every battle with their foes, the Asuras, was ending in defeat. The gods decided to ask Lord Vishnu for help. Vishnu told them that they needed the power of immortality to achieve victory, for which the gods needed to drink Amrita, the nectar of immortality. And the way to achieve that, he said, was not to work against the Asuras, but to work with them. And thus began the grueling and extensive process of Samudra Manthana, or churning of the ocean, where the Devas and Asuras, with major help from Vishnu, worked tirelessly to obtain the priceless Amrita. This process would test not only their physical strength, but also their mental strength. What different riches would the churning of the ocean reveal? Who were the beneficiaries of the incredible bounty? Were the Asuras cheated out of the Amrita they worked so hard to obtain? And why? Let's look at all of that and more in the story of the Samudra Manthana, or the churning of the ocean, as told in the Bhagavata Purana. The story really begins with the god of gods, the powerful Indra. Indra was given a garland by the great sage Durvasa. Indra carelessly flung the garland on his elephant Airavata. The garland slipped off the elephant's head and fell onto the ground when Airavata stomped on it. Durvasa took this as a grave insult. He felt that this was the kind of behavior resulting from Indra's arrogance in his superior powers. Durvasa, in his anger, cursed all the gods to lose their power. They would no longer be immortal, he declared. As a result of which, the gods started to lose battles. They weakened in power, sacrifices and rites, which were important to the gods, were being destroyed. In short, the gods' world was in chaos. The Asuras, led by King Bali, were taking over. Bali had consolidated considerable power, and if things continued the way it was going, the Asuras would rule over all the worlds. The situation was dire. Something needed to be done, and soon. When the gods, along with Brahma, went to Lord Vishnu for help, he told them to obtain the Amrita, or ambrosia, from the depths of the ocean. This task was monumental. Vishnu recognized that the gods could not achieve this task on their own. They needed help. Who better than the powerful Asuras to help? Vishnu also gave some extra guidance to the gods. The process of Samudra Manthana was intense and complex. Vishnu warned the gods not to be scared of the poison, nor be greedy for the nice objects, or be angry when the Asuras demanded for the objects. He also made it clear that while both parties would put in the work, only the gods will have access to the precious Amrita. The gods did as Vishnu instructed. The Asuras agreed to work with them for a share of the goodies they would obtain in the process. And so, under the supervision of the mighty Vishnu, the gods, together with their enemies, the Asuras, got to work. Have you ever seen the process of churning milk to make butter? The principle is the milk cream is agitated, the fat cells clump together, and then eventually they rise to the surface. You skim it off and you get butter. Now, this can be done in a variety of different ways. In the olden days, or the traditional way of churning butter, is to use a earthen pot filled with milk cream. You would also use a wooden rod-like tool called the plunger. This is used to agitate the milk cream. Some butter churns use a rope which is wound around the plunger. You hold on to either sides and pull one after the other to help turn the plunger. As the cream is churned, the fat separates and rises above. This fatty goodness, that is butter, is then skimmed off. If you cook the butter, you end up with ghee, which is very important in Vedic Indian society because it was used to perform many rites and rituals. The story of Samudra Manthana sort of follows a similar principle, and here's why I say that. To start with, there are 7 oceans described in ancient Indian cosmology. One of the 7 being Ksheerasagara, or the ocean of milk. So this is where the churning was going to happen. First, they needed a massive plunger to stir this massive ocean. They chose Mount Mandara as the plunger. Problem was, it was too heavy. The gods and Asuras plucked it up and tried to transport it, but the mountain slipped and crashed onto the Asuras and gods, causing a lot of damage. Many were crushed. Vishnu came to their rescue. He revived them. and now they were healed and free of anxiety. Vishnu lifted the mountain and placed it on the back of Garuda, his divine mount, who was a giant eagle-like bird. Garuda easily transported the mountain to the ocean. Next, they also needed a rope to help turn the mountain. Enter Vasuki, the king of serpents. He agrees to be the rope in exchange for a portion in the riches. The gods and demons wrap Vasuki around Mount Mandara. They each grab one end, but there is a hiccup. At first, the gods, who were standing near Vasuki's head, held on to that end. But the Asuras decided they should get the head of Vasuki. They thought that holding the tail end was insulting to them. Vishnu simply smiled and agreed to their demands, and you will see why soon. So now the churning begins. First, all sorts of herbs, grass, creepers, and plants were flung into the Kshirasagara. The gods and Asuras started to pull. They pulled and they pulled. The mountain started to turn, but soon, with no support to hold it in place, it sank into the water. Everyone was disheartened. Again, Vishnu came to their rescue. Vishnu realized that this was the work of the Lord of Obstacles. He decided to remove it. He took the form of Kurma, or the tortoise, got into the water and held up the mountain on his back, which was as wide as a giant island. Problem solved. The gods and Asuras continued to churn. All throughout the process, Vishnu supported them in different forms. He helped them increase their strength and energy by enhancing their individual qualities. He supported the mountain from above by holding on to it with his hands. He did everything to help the gods, Asuras, and Naga to succeed. The ocean was being greatly agitated. Everyone was pleased with the progress they were making when they faced yet another hiccup. This time it was Vasuki. The Naga Vasuki was a giant, magnificent serpent. He had 1,000 eyes and mouths, and he was putting all this effort into turning the Mandara mountain. As a result of which, fire and smoke started to come out of his mouth. The fumes irritated the gods and Asuras, making them tired and unable to perform well. And it affected the Asuras more because, remember, they had demanded the spot in the front, so they were right next to Vasuki's head. Their egos made them suffer comparatively more. Yet again, Vishnu came to their rescue. He made it rain, cleaning down the smoke and helping the gods and Asuras to get back to churning the ocean vigorously. Still, there was no Amrita. Vishnu decided to join the churning, and with his help, the pace picked up even more. Finally, the ocean started to produce something. Unfortunately, it was not something they wanted, and it was a setback. The deadly poison Kalakuta was produced, and it spread everywhere, threatening to destroy the world. The people needed help. They went to Kailasa and asked Shiva for help. Shiva saw how much everyone was suffering. The people had come to him seeking freedom from fear and to be saved. He was compassionate towards their situation. He didn't hesitate to help the people. He consulted with his consort Sati, after which he scooped the poison up in the palm of his hands, brought it to his mouth, and drank it. The poison reacted, making his throat blue, which he wore like a badge of honor, like an ornament that celebrated his virtues. When Shiva was drinking the poison, a tiny bit of it trickled down his palm. Various creatures like scorpions, poisonous snakes, reptiles, and plants consumed it. With the threat of the poison gone, the gods and Asuras continued to churn. Soon, the divine cow Surabhi appeared. The rishis or learned men accepted this, as they could use the milk from the cow to produce ghee to use to perform rites and rituals that they generally did. Next, a white horse appeared. This horse was named Uchchaishrava. King Bali took it. Then came the elephant Airavata, which was taken by Indra. 8 more elephants appeared. These were called Digajas, and they stood guard in 8 different directions. Next, 2 jewels named Kaustuba and Padmaraga appeared. Vishnu took them and wore them on his chest. Next, the all-giving tree Parijata appeared and the gods took it. Apsaras appeared next and they too went to the gods. The extremely beautiful and graceful Lakshmi, the goddess of prosperity, appeared. Everyone wanted her and they tried to woo her with all kinds of riches. But she refused them all because she believed that they were lacking in one way or another. She chose Vishnu because not only did he have all the good qualities, he also did not desire her. He had no greed. Vishnu accepted her and placed her in his chest. She brought good fortune to all the gods and the gods celebrated. The Asuras were less than happy with this. So when the goddess of wine Varuni appeared next, they accepted her. And finally, the moment they were all waiting for. A good-looking young man appeared from the ocean. His name was Dhanvantari. He is the originator of Ayurveda. He was dressed in rich clothes and jewelry. He had an aura about him that was impossible to ignore. But what caught everyone's eye was the pot in his hands. Everyone sprung into action. Unfortunately for the gods, the Asuras were quicker and they snatched the pot away from Dhanvantari's hands. The Asuras were now in possession of Amrita, the nectar that would give them the power of immortality. Disappointed and disheartened, the gods turned to Vishnu. Vishnu told them not to worry. I got this, he told them. Vishnu decided to use the power of illusion or Maya against the Asuras. Pretty soon, not only were there disagreements between the gods and the Asuras about how the Amrita should be shared, there was also conflict between the Asuras themselves. The gods tried to reason with the Asuras that since the Amrita was obtained as a result of everyone's effort, all parties involved deserved a share in it. However, the Asuras were greedy and they did not want to share. Moreover, there was also a lot of infighting amongst the Asuras as the stronger Asuras did not want to share the Amrita with the weaker Asuras. In the midst of all this chaos, the Asuras and gods were suddenly distracted when a beautiful woman approached them. She was extremely attractive and they could not take their eyes off of her. The Asuras chatted with her and they found out that her name was Mohini. They were completely charmed and bewitched by her. After some friendly banter, the Asuras decided that the beautiful Mohini would be the best person to decide who would receive the Amrita because it must be fate that brought her to them when they were in the middle of a fight with their own people. At first, Mohini teasingly warned them that they shouldn't trust her, and the Asuras just laughed it off, thinking she was just joking, and insisted that she must do it. So Mohini told them she would do it, but only if they accept her decision without complaints. The Asuras agreed. Mohini graciously accepted the precious pot of Amrita from them. The poor Asuras were now completely caught in Vishnu's web of Maya, because the woman who so easily led them astray was actually Vishnu, who had assumed the form of Mohini. Vishnu, as Mohini, kept the Asuras distracted by continuing to charm them. She instructed the gods and Asuras to sit in separate rows. She fed the Asuras sweet words whilst feeding the gods the Amrita. Before the Asuras could realize what was happening, Mohini distributed the Amrita to the gods. The Asuras got none of the Amrita, but because they had promised Mohini that they would accept her decision and because they did not want to fight a woman whom they had so much affection and respect for, they said nothing and quietly accepted their fate. That is, all except a sneaky Asura named Swarbhanu. The sun god and moon god were watching as Mohini was distributing the Amrita. And to their amazement, they saw an Asura do something sneaky. This Asura's name was Swarbhanu. He disguised himself like a god and sat in their row undetected. Mohini, unaware of this deception, served him the Amrita along with the other gods. Just as Swarbhanu began to drink the Amrita, the sun god and moon god alerted the other gods about the deception. Vishnu immediately whipped out his chakra and sent it spinning towards Swarbhanu, chopping his head right off of his body. Interestingly, because Svarbhanu had just started to consume the Amrita, his head became immortal. His body, however, wasn't touched by the Amrita and it died. Brahma gave him the status of a planet. Even as a planet, he held on to his grudge against the moon and sun for ratting him out, and he attacked them every chance he got in the form of eclipses. He was the only Asura who got to consume the Amrita, even if it was just a little. This is how only the gods received the power of immortality. The gods and Asuras had the same objective and they followed the same path or way to reach that objective. In the end, however, only the gods who were guided by Vishnu obtained the fruits of their labor. The Asuras, guided by their greed, intolerance, and infighting, were left with nothing. And that is the story of Samudra Manthana, or the churning of the ocean, as told in the Bhagavata Purana. Thank you so much for joining. Dhanyavada.